Hey guys, it's Shara from Woodshop Diaries, and I'm back with another practical but simple DIY furniture project, this time a TV stand console. This was a really fun build that's super easy to customize, so if you're ready to see how to make one for yourself, let's dive in and get building. This project started with cutting down the plywood. If you've seen many of my videos, this process probably looks familiar, as this is how a lot of my projects often start. For this, I used 3/4 inch birch plywood, and I cut down all of my pieces that I needed to build the main body of the console. I've included the complete cut list and cut diagrams in the printable plans, but I cut 4 identical panels to use for the sides and dividers. Then I cut 3 bottom shelves, 3 middle shelves, and 6 plywood strips to use as the top supports. I'm going to be adding a face frame to this project later, so all of the plywood edges will be covered except for the middle shelves. So I did apply some edge banding to them before sanding everything well. Next, I pulled out my pocket hole jig to drill pocket holes along the edges of my shelves and into each end of the top supports. Then I assembled the cabinet body with pocket hole screws. I made the middle shelves here stationary, so I secured them using the pocket holes that I had drilled. But if you wanted to make them adjustable, you can drill shelf pin holes along the insides of each section of the cabinet instead. In this case, I just wanted 6 equal-sized cubbies, but the best thing about building stuff yourself is that you get to customize it however you want. So feel free to change up the shelving here however you'd like. After I had assembled 2 sections of the console, I moved it to the floor so that I could attach the 3rd section. Then I moved on to adding the face frame. I cut my face frame pieces from 1x construction lumber, so it was like pine and spruce, and I used 1x2s for the vertical pieces and 1x4s for the top and bottom. After test fitting my pieces, I decided to add some interest to this frame by cutting some arches in the left and right pieces. As usual, I searched the shop for some kind of round object to trace my arch with, and ended up using an old Lazy Susan from a base cabinet. The main thing was to make sure that the arch stayed at least 2 inches from the top edge, and you'll see why in a minute. Now that I had my arches cut and my pieces sanded, I drilled pocket holes to assemble my face frame using the Kreg Micro Pocket Hole Jig. I've mentioned this several times before. This micro jig just drills smaller holes, so I like to use it for more delicate pieces like face frames, but it's definitely not necessary. A regular size jig would work fine too. Then I assembled the frame using pocket hole screws and glued and nailed it onto the front of my cabinet. All right, so the face frame is on, and now I need to add the trim. I'm gonna add some like 1x3s here at the bottom for almost like a baseboard kind of thing, and I'll wrap it around the edges. And then at the top, I'm gonna add a 1x2 and a square dowel, which is just like 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch piece of wood, just to give it a little bit extra dimension. I cut to fit my trim pieces, beveling the corners 45 degrees, and glued and brad nailed them around the front and sides of my console. I added 1x3s around the bottom and 1x2s around the top. After the 1x2 was on, I also cut and fit some square dowel on top of it. You could totally swap this for cove or half round molding or some other small trim piece if you wanted something a little more traditional. Now it's time to add the top. I cut the top panel from 3/4 inch plywood and edge banded the front and sides since these will be exposed. I cut this so that it would overhang the sides and top 3/4 inch. That way the overhang kind of matched the 3/4 inch square dowel to look like a stair step pattern. I realize now that I'm looking at this footage that you can't tell what's happening, but I'm driving screws through the top supports in each section to secure the top panel. Once the top was on, I cut a 1/4 inch plywood panel to fit over the back. My friend had requested to have holes cut in the back of each section of the cabinet to be able to run his cords to plug stuff in. So I measured out the bottom center of each section and used a roll of painter's tape to draw a semicircle to cut out. I realized that it would be much easier to stain this all separately, so I stained the back panel first, then I stained the console. I used Minwax Mocha, which was a really dark color that seemed to fit this piece well. Then I applied a couple coats of poly to seal it, and once that was dry, I stapled the back panel onto the back of the cabinet. And now this simple TV stand console is finished, and I really love how it turned out. So very simple, but the trim detail and the subtle arches really dress it up just enough to keep it modern, but not plain. I really hope you enjoyed seeing how simply it came together, and if you'd like to see more DIY furniture projects, I've got plenty more coming soon. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, friends, happy building!